Anthony Hartwig here, and as you can tell, we're already giddy. We have a very good friend of the show, has been on YSN. This is going to be her third time now. Morgan Howe from Now the Texas
Crazy.
Smoke. You know her from Arizona State. You might know her from Fresno State. You might know her from the Offensive Player of the Year last year in the WPF. Whatever you know her from, you know her. Morgan Howe, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me back yet again. I just can't stay away.
we we wouldn't be talking to big names in softball without bringing on Morgan Howe. We just couldn't do
Oh,
it.
no.
Morgan, this is the third time we've had you on. This segment we're doing now is kind of called Living the Dream, and we're bringing on the softball players that have quote unquote made it. I know no one's ever satisfied with where they are. They're always trying to get better, but they've kind of
Mhm.
achieved the dreams that the girls that we're covering here on YSN in high school are trying to get to, and we want them to share their journey and the lessons they've learned along the way so our players can hear it, take notes, and try to achieve their dreams too. So my first question for you, and I'm just going to let you kind of talk about your journey and where you started softball and when you kind of started to fall in love with that game and the sport.
I think I fell in love right when I started. So, um, my journey, who, my dad put me in t-ball. It was like a co-ed baseball thing. It was like a t-ball baseball, but with girls and boys. I hated it. I hated it. I said, Dad, I'm not playing this. I don't want to play with the boys. I was very into my Bratz dolls. Um, and my dad let me quit. That's the only thing I've ever been allowed to quit was t-ball. I didn't play any sports for probably like a year. I don't know the timing. I don't remember a lot from when I was little, but my dad put me in soccer again, co-ed. One kid like slide tackled me, and I was done. No soccer for me after that. Um, and then I saw my friends from school, like my girl friends from school playing softball one day. And I guess I was like, Dad, I want to do that. So then he put me in rec softball, Mira Mesa girls softball is where I started. And then ever since that, I was just having a blast. There's not a time that I can remember that I didn't enjoy playing softball. I just simply loved the sport. Loved it so much that I didn't even know you could go to school for it, like college. And it's funny, your parents always tell you, you're going to go to school. You're going to go to college. You're going to get your degree, whatever. And I was like, I ain't going to school. I'm not going. Which I know that if I didn't play softball, I probably like I know they would have put me in school anyways. But um, I was like, all right, well, if you're going to make me go to school, then I'm going to play softball doing it too. But I didn't know that you could get a scholarship. I didn't know you could get things paid for. I really didn't watch softball growing up. Like I didn't watch any college softball. I definitely didn't watch USA. I didn't watch anything. Very big baseball kid with my dad. We watched a lot of baseball. I wasn't going to play it by any means, but we watched a lot. Um, and I just loved it. I just loved it. I wanted to keep playing. I really didn't care about the school part. I think I also was just raised to if you're going to be in something, you're going to do it right the first time. So I was a really good student. Did I love school? Not really, but I did it anyways. Um, and then probably around my junior year is when I got end of sophomore, junior year, is when I got my first looks from a couple small schools um, all over the place. There's maybe like three or four from just all different parts of the U.S. Didn't really know what I was looking at. I just wanted to play. I didn't really care. But there was one school that was super interested enough to like bring me on a visit, and that was Fresno State. I actually had no idea where Fresno was. Living in California, growing up in Southern California, I should have known. Didn't. I thought Fresno was like in a really cold place. Something about the Fres was like registering as freezing to me. So didn't really make sense, but it did in my mind. Took my visit to Fresno State. I fell in love with the way that Coach Ford and her staff made me feel. They made me feel at home. I felt like I had a family. Um, they were so invested with me as a human in my life. They knew my mom's name, my dad's name, my brother's name, my sister's name, my dog's name. Like she just knew. She did her research for sure. But Fresno State, the community, I mean, everything was about Fresno and Fresno. So it was a really cool experience. Loved my time there. Um, Grew really, really well. I don't want to say grew well, but I just grew up a lot in my first year at Fresno. Coach Ford ended up taking the job at Arizona State. I stayed one more year at Fresno. Loved the team camaraderie there. That was probably the most tight knit team I've ever been a part of. But I knew that I wanted to stay under that staff, so I followed Coach Ford to ASU. And then loved my time there. Grew even more as a person and as an athlete. Probably played some of my best softball I've ever played at Arizona State. And then did not get drafted right out of college. Ended up deciding to get my master's so that I could coach. While I was getting my master's at Florida, I got the opportunity to play at Athletes Unlimited. That was season 1 in 2020 when COVID happened. Everything was shut down. Athletes Unlimited had the means to put everyone in a bubble. So went on with that, had a great season. And then I also was supposed to play for a new team being added to the NPF. It was called the California Commotion. I tried out for that team while I was in my first year of grad school, made that team, but then COVID. So then the NPF folded. And that's when Athletes Unlimited happened at the end of that fall. And then I got my master's. I was supposed to play in Spain for a week with Team Florida. It was just an independent team out of Florida. But COVID wasn't going to let that happen. I think we were still kind of in the weird space of COVID. I also just spit everywhere. That was amazing. And then I played one more year of Athletes Unlimited. And then we spoke again right before my first season with the WPF. And it's been just a really crazy whirlwind ever since, just haven't figured out how to leave.
Whirlwind's the right word for that journey, because you've just been kind of everywhere,
Everywhere.
And it all started a girl that, like you said, didn't really watch softball, didn't know anything about the softball landscape in college, didn't know what teams were good, what teams weren't. You could get a letter from a UCLA and someone else, and you wouldn't really.
I wouldn't have known the difference.
Cool. So how did you go from that to, succeeding at that level? And obviously the softball IQ has to go up, way up, when you get there and you start playing at Fresno, and then you start to learn the landscape of college softball and what like teams are good and what teams are going there. So what was the transition like for you from a girl that was just playing to love the sport, and then it turns into a job when you get into D1 softball?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, I was just raised to if you're there, you're going to do things the right way, and you're just going to do it to the best of your ability. There is no half-assing anything. There is no half doing something. I was raised to not quit, other than the one time in T-ball with the boys. But, we're going to see things through, and we're going to, make sure that we did everything in our power to set ourselves up for success. So, I mean, if I was putting the time in and I was putting the work in and it wasn't working out at Fresno, well, then, okay, then we can start talking about maybe leaving or maybe doing, but that wasn't really the case for me. I worked hard and the game rewarded me. So, there weren't reasons to leave, around playing time or anything like that. And I loved my staff. So, I love the game so much. I don't know why I love it so much. I don't know what it was that I was just like, I want to know everything there is to know about this game. But, I've always just wanted to be the best at it. Again, I don't know why. Like, of all the other sports I played, I don't know why this is the one that was like, I have to know everything there is to know. But it simply really, when I look back at the entire journey, it simply is because of the love for the game. I wanted to learn, so I had the information, or I gained the information. I wanted to be better, so I put the work in to be better. I wanted to see myself starting all the time, so I just made sure I was outworking whoever I needed to be outworking, and putting my head down and just getting to work. So I think all of this comes from just simply loving the sport and loving the game for what it is. When you love something that much, you want to know the IQ. You want to know how to better, more efficiently do something. You want to know how to make certain plays. You want to know how to hit certain balls. You want to know what to do in certain situations. Like, you just want and desire those things just because you love it, So I think that's honestly just where it all comes from. Like, but I just couldn't tell you why I love it so much. I just do. Like, there's not one thing that's, that sticks out to me. All of it's so fun. So I don't know.
How much do you remember about your first year in college and the transition to that level, and how you dealt with what I'm sure had to be a little bit of a mental hurdle all of a sudden being at that level? So what was that like for you?
It was mental. It was mental and physical. I was trying to put the two together. It was, oh God, it was a transition. I remember everything about my freshman year. Yeah, because so I just loved softball, right? Growing up, I just loved softball. I just wanted to play. I did the extra hitting. I had hitting coaches. I had all of these things. Um, but what I didn't have and what I didn't know was like, the strength and conditioning side. I didn't know anything about getting in the weight room. I didn't know anything about probably running extra. And it's not just like long distance, it's like sport based. So change of direction, sprinting, short bursts of energy, things like that. Yeah, no, none of that was crossing my mind through travel ball and through high school and stuff like that. So when I got to Fresno, even before I got to Fresno, they sent you like a summer packet to like start getting in shape and start getting your body in the movements that it's going to be in during when you get there. I just remember looking at this packet the first time I got it, and I was like, what are half of these things? I had never put a bar on my back ever. I certainly hadn't cleaned one, so it was a transition for sure. I felt like truly my freshman year, I honestly felt like I didn't know how to play softball either because, you're learning all these things, just way more efficient ways to move your body, way more efficient routes to take in the outfield. A more efficient swing. I didn't realize how maybe like handsy I was when I first came in versus, after the development that, Coach Ford and Harger put into me in the hitting side. So it was a transition for sure. I remember vividly calling my dad, probably not even a month into the fall. And I was like hyperventilating, crying. I was like, you're going to have to come get me. Like, I don't know how to play softball anymore. Like, I don't want to be here. Like, it's not fun. And he's like, it's going to be okay. Like, I was like, no. I was like, I already packed my bags. Like, you just need to come get me. I was like, they told me they weren't going to change anything about my swing and they're changing all of it. I mean, I spent hours every day on the tee with Harger learning how to hit a drop ball. It's like this tee and the ball is not even like a foot off the ground. And you're standing trying to hit a ball, not even a foot off the ground. I mean, it was excruciating, but it just felt like so much because it was such a large transition for me. We're not even talking about the school piece either. Like you're on your own for the first time. There is nobody telling you have to go to class. You either decide you're going or you don't, and if your coaches catch you not in class, like that's a choice you made and that's a consequence you're going to have to pay for if they catch you. But, it's everything, you're on your own, just thrown to the wolves, making your own decisions. I was 17 at the time. I went into college at 17. I'm 17 years old making my own decisions, and that was crazy. Not that my mom woke me up every morning, but it was like, wow, nobody's telling me I have to go to class. I read what I needed to read, so everything was a transition. But so I think that's why everything just felt so heavy in those moments. But man, you got to get through that first year to really like know that in your second year, everything really is going to be okay. Like, the routine of everything now, what you need versus what you can kind of like, maybe I don't need to go to every class, or maybe I do need to go to every class. Do I need the extra study hall time? Things of that nature. But yeah, that first year, I think you definitely have to just get through it. But there's so much growing in all areas of it's not even just the softball piece. It's like the human and the school and the social piece. So it was a year for change. It sure was.
Man, 17, you start your college career.
Yep.
I imagine that means you graduated high school early to go to Fresno State, right?
No, I think I just started school early because I never skipped a grade. I didn't like make anything faster. I turned 17 in the fall of my senior year, and then I didn't turn 18 until October of my freshman year. So I went in at 17 and I just was this infant.
What was harder for you to hurdle, the mental side of transitioning that or the physical side of getting your body ready for that Division I level? What was harder for you?
I'm going to say the mental piece. I grew up in a time too where there weren't mental performance, sports psychologists, like all of that was new. And if it was happening, or if it wasn't very new, it was definitely very much in like a professional setting. like very high level athletes, but it certainly hadn't trickled down to the college level yet. Or maybe it had, but it wasn't at the mid major level yet. I think the mental side for sure. I I would shut up and do a lot of the physical stuff, but I think that I could have pushed myself more on the physical side if I had a mental to go with it. Um, the body is capable of some pretty crazy things. Like I said, I'd never lifted weights before. And I was extremely intimidated by weights, like in like strength training at school. A lot of my teammates were throwing like 45-pound plates on the bar, and I'm like, I'm crumbling under that thing. As soon as I stand up, I'm coming right back down. And it's just funny because, I throw weights on the bar now and I'm like, I could have done this. Like this wasn't bad at all. This wasn't heavy by any means. And even when I was that young, like I didn't have a mental side. I was very scared for sure. I was very play it safe. But I also think that comes with just how much was moving and how much was changing and how much I was adjusting to. But I think the mental piece was the hardest piece for me. I think if I had a mental, the physical would have came along. But because I didn't have very much mental toughness, the physical piece kind of was hindered by that. I remember one conditioning session, I thought I killed it. I thought I killed it. I thought I like made my times. I was like, man, first test I've ever passed. And man, Coach Ford was angry. She was mad at everyone. We didn't, like, as a team, we did not do well, but she pointed at me in the stretching circle and she's like, you are mentally weak. And I was like, ah. I was like, oh, like I even did like this. Like I thought she was talking to someone else because I thought that I passed this thing. I thought I I had the greatest day ever, and I sure didn't. I sure didn't. But man, like it's moments like those too that like you need, because you don't realize like you have so much more in the tank than you think you do, and boy did I have a lot more in the tank. So
when you compare
yeah.
that to where you were senior year, mentally and physically, how much of a transition do you think you saw yourself? I mean, do you think you were in like the best mental state you could be your senior year at Arizona State at that point? Or do you think you still had places you could go in your mental mindset?
Yeah, no. So I think it was a change for sure. So my freshman year, I was not mentally there in my sport, but I think as a human being, I was pretty solid in who I was as a human. I knew who I was. I knew I was a great person. Things of that nature. So from a social perspective, I was pretty solid in the mental. From a softball perspective, I wasn't. To my senior year at Arizona State, when I transferred, so I would say that this kind of goes into my junior year, honestly. When I transferred, me knowing I was going into Coach Ford's new program at a new school with new people, I just had this like chip on my shoulder of like, I cannot be who I was my freshman year. Like, I cannot come into this new school as one of Coach Ford's recruited kids and not pass my test and be, not physically ready and things like that. So mentally, I like really got it together, pushed myself to like really different boundaries and just really further boundaries. I actually lost like 30 pounds in a summer because I just refused to not pass these tests when I got in. I was a whole different being in the mental on the softball side going into Arizona State and while I was at Arizona State. Now, when I left Arizona State, when I graduated, I don't know that I was the strongest mentally from a social perspective, from like a regular human on the street perspective. There was just some like relationship stuff that had gone on. Obviously, when you graduate and you're not drafted and you have no direction of like, am I still playing? I had a really big like identity crisis afterwards because I just came off this high of a season, a high of these last 2 years, a high of the last 4 years, honestly. And now what? Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I'm still super hungry. I have all this information. I have all this knowledge. I have all this drive to go compete and like beat people and win in the box and win on the field and be a part of a team, and just it's gone. There's nothing. I mean, there's nowhere to put it. There's no avenue. So I was like really lost as a human for a minute. I think, you know, I was more prepared than I thought I was to transition out of softball. I mean, Coach Ford does a really good job of building you up as a human first, wanting to make sure that aside from the softball piece, you know, your life is going to be good and your life's going to be okay. But like I said, there was just a lot of social things that were happening in those same moments that left me pretty like vulnerable mentally as a human. So the transition, I mean, it's pretty crazy. I will say it's nice that one piece, like softball versus social, one piece was always better than the other. But when I graduated, I definitely, I'm not saying took a turn for the worse by any means. Like I didn't go like completely into shambles, but I was having a rough time for the first like couple months right out of college for sure.
You obviously found it, right? You found
we
yourself.
found it. We figured it out.
You know, you figured it out.
Life does end up happening, but you know, to wait for it was really hard.
You know, I like that you say you know how kind of lost you felt when there was a possibility that softball was over, because I see so many young kids here that are fighting for their college softball dreams, and they struggle with identity and who are they outside of softball, and if this doesn't happen, who am I? What can I do if I don't make it softball?
Yeah.
What kind of things did you do to get past that and realize that you are more than a softball player?
You know, again, I think this comes from like the love of the game piece, because, you know, in high school, I sometimes like, you know, I do look back on high school and I'm like, I did miss out on some things. I didn't go on like our senior Disneyland trip, which probably would have been fun. I did miss a few school dances. I missed, you know, some of my classmates having like bonfires and parties and things like that. I missed out on those things, but like, did I? I loved softball so much that I didn't need to go to those parties. I didn't need to go to those dances. I would have much rather been with my group of friends that shared similar goals. And like our version of a fun night out was going to the cages at 11 o'clock at night and just swinging away, just having fun together, working on our craft together. And I know that sounds so like nerdy in the softball side of things, but we just loved it so much. And I think that's why I didn't really have like a identity crisis during those times in my life where I was trying to get recruited and I was trying to figure out where I was going to be for the next 4 years, was because I surrounded myself with friends that had similar goals and similar dreams that I did. And that's just what we did for fun. And if it wasn't a night at the cages, it was like we're all hanging out watching TV in the jacuzzi or like in the pool and just hanging out, you know. Maybe probably watching baseball, maybe probably, you know, watching baseball movies, like things like that. I don't know. That was fun to us. So I think, you know, navigating that piece wasn't hard for me because I just had my friends that supported my dreams and I also supported theirs. You know, we had our fun and we indulged in our fun the way we wanted to. I think that there's also so many social pressures now with social media and like the way that people are kind of raised and the entitlement and stuff like that. I think, you know, there's so much happening on social media. There's so many kids that are 15, 16, 12 that look like they're grown adults, and it kind of scares me. But I think that they just see all these people on social media living a life that is so adult-like and so luxurious, if you will, that they think that they have to do that to also fit in. I think that I've always been one to not really care about like what everyone else is doing. If I'm happy, that's all I care about, you know. And if people don't see what I'm doing and that's like not going to make them happy, like that's fine. I don't want you to feel like you have to do what I'm doing to make yourself happy. I'm going to indulge in what I want to indulge in and be happy. If you need to live your life by doing other things that don't align with mine, I mean, what's there to really like hang on to, you know? I mean, in terms of like, why does that bother me so much that our things don't align? If they don't align, then we weren't really meant to be hanging out anyway, and that's okay, you know. So I don't know. I think in the I just had a different social media was not as big when I was in the recruiting process. So feeling like I'm not fitting in wasn't as probably tough of a task as it is now, or like tough of a thing to get over now. Um, I don't know. I'm just very big on like you got to do what you have to do to make yourself happy at all stages of your life. And if you have a goal, it's cool and it's okay to care about it. Like just because everyone else on social media is trying to be this influencer, that influencer, need to go to parties, need to show that I'm like a part of the social crowd. Like that's cool if that's what they want, but if it's not what you want, it's okay. You know, it's cool to go dive into what you want to dive into. I think that's probably something that I don't think enough kids hear often enough is that it's cool to care about the things you care about, you know?
Meanwhile, your social media is just filled with tanks, nothing but tanks and bombs because that's all you do. 2023 Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, what was that season like? And then going into this season and this Texas Smoke team that you're a part of that is doing a lot of huge things for professional softball. And I know Brandon Phillips has just done a phenomenal job in building up this team and this sport. What's it like to be a part of this organization and this, this league and see it go through some tough times? There was some question marks in the middle of the year
There
and
was.
still put together a league and still put, a lot of players in their dream positions. What's it like to still be a part of it?
I mean, it's amazing. I can't say better things. I mean, just the opportunity to play by itself is something to be thankful for. So last year was a fun year. Man, it's been quite a journey. So last year was my fourth year in the professional softball world, my fourth season, and honestly, I thought I was going to be done after the Vipers. An exhibition season is hard. Being the start of something is really hard. It wasn't my most favorite season. I, you know, there were some sacrifices to be made in season one of WWE. Oh my God, who am I? WPF. I was thinking about Jade for a second there, but there's some sacrifices to be made. So when it's an exhibition season and you're just trying to get your name out there and you're just trying to get the word out that we're going to be starting a league, you know, there's some there's some things that occur. It wasn't ideal, especially coming from 2 seasons of AU where they had, all of the things they wanted to build off of with the NPF and all of the complaints from the NPF. AU checked all those boxes and they made it feel very professional. So coming from there to the first season of WPF, it was tough. I mean, we played the same team the entire summer. And I think it was like, I don't even know how many games it was, but it was the same team the entire summer. I mean, brain gooing, like mind oozing, like it didn't really turn, it wasn't fun. Obviously we were on a certain budget because it was the first year. So, just the living situations just weren't ideal. I lost actually money. I didn't get paid. I didn't make any money that summer. I probably lost more money than I made, if I'm being honest. So I was ready to be done after that. I didn't want to be a part of something new again and then probably get tossed to the side later. And it's hard too when it's not a year-round thing and you're not making a livable salary. I didn't get to train the way I wanted. So in a sense I didn't have the year I wanted. I played like absolute dog shit, excuse my language. I probably had the worst year of my entire softball career from T-ball to now. Like I played horrid. So I just was like, I think I'm going to be done after this. And then I got a call from Courtney Hawkins was one of our general managers at the time. And he's the one that was like, give us a chance. And BP also jumped in on the call eventually and was like, give us a chance. We want to draft you in our expansion draft. Give us a chance to show you that like we're going to grow this thing and we want to do it right. And, just have some faith in us. So I was like, you know what? All right. So I went into last season with really nothing to lose. I only signed a 1-year contract. And I I told my family, I told my person, I told a lot of my friends, like, I don't really have expectations for this summer. I'm just gonna go out and have fun. Like, if this is the last year I really am gonna play, I wanna make sure that I was having fun doing it the whole time. So, just simply being appreciative of putting on a uniform, just simply being appreciative of hitting on the field at practice or getting some reps at practice or just being on a team, um, at all. I was just gonna enjoy that, and, I did have time to prepare for that season, so I did put work in on the off season. Um, and it worked out, and I think I honestly probably played my best softball because I was having fun and I just was loose and I had no expectations. Um, and then it turned into a 2-year contract, and here we are just having some more fun. So, but I will, and to talk about your point earlier, if there were question marks about the season, there were some question marks. There was a lot of question marks. So many questions were asked between the end of last season to now, but Brandon's really making this thing happen. Brandon is somebody that says he's going to do something and he does it. If there's anything that you ever need, he's a very hands-on owner. If there's anything that you ever need, he's very open to talking about it. He wants to know how, to make this work. He wants to know what our needs are. And he'll also be honest about things too. If it's something that's not feasible right now, he's honest about it. But he's also very open and honest about the vision and about where he wants to take this. And I think there's, a huge testament to that is just this season in general, this season even happening. There were so many question marks with Spark going independent. And then eventually a few months later, Vipers kind of folded. And then, Pride, being under U-Trip and U-Trip kind of gone like, they're under some lawsuits right now. Pride ended up not operating this season. There was a huge question mark of whether we were going to have a season or not. And, for Brandon to like dig down and figure out how to make it work, like he's serious about it. You know what I mean? So it's really cool how much he wants this to work out for us and how much he wants to see this sport really succeed. And he's really not here for himself. He's here for the sport of softball. And I think it's just really easy to buy into somebody like that. He doesn't care if he's the person that gets it done or isn't the person that gets it done, but he does want to at least try. He wants to be in those conversations with other leagues and figuring out how to make this work for everybody. Because I think all the athletes are on the same page as well. Like everybody wants to be able to play every league, but we also shouldn't have 3, 4, or 5 different leagues in the States. That's just ridiculous. It's taking away from what it could be, but I think, it's just getting all those people in a room together and really having an honest conversation about things. And again, BP has just been really cool. Very supportive, very personable too. He takes the time to have real conversations with you. You're not just another player funneled into the system. Like he cares about people as human beings too. So it's been quite the journey, if you will. But we're just taking it year by year and day by day and just having fun with it while it's still here, because in 10 years, my body probably physically won't be able to do it anymore. So we got to enjoy it while it's here. But yeah,
and we hope you get 10 more years, right? That'd be awesome.
I mean, I hope so. I would love to do that.
You're still mentally in it, right? You're still like, let's go. You're still enjoying it. You're still loving it. So
yes,
as long as your body can still say, let's do it.
Exactly.
If you had something that you hope that professional softball has before you're done that it doesn't have right now, what's like one thing or one goal that you hope for the whole professional softball landscape before you do have to put up the cleats?
Honestly, what I hope for is, unity, but like livable salaries. I don't know that I will see that by the end of my career. But, just being able to provide an opportunity that somebody really could live off of this salary, for an entire year is something that I hope to see by the time either I'm on my way out or like immediately after I leave. but I think that takes unity. I think that it takes the leagues coming together and figuring out how to work together because, you know, if we put all of our players and all of our money and all of our sponsorships and all of our, you know, our contacts and our resources together, I just spit everywhere again. I just really think that that opportunity would be there for everyone, for every player. But I think people, and I'm not in those rooms. I don't have a seat at those tables, but you know, to be this grounded and doing it yourself, I can't help but think like people want to be the reason why it's happening instead of like, you know, everyone says they're in it for the athletes. Everyone says they're in it for the sport. They're in it for growing women's opportunities and things like that. But like, are you? Because if you were, you know, we'd put the pride and the egos aside and we'd sit down and have a legitimate conversation and figure out how to work together about it. But again, I'm not in those conversations. I don't have seats at those tables. So I don't know what conversations are being had and what aren't. And I don't know what's being said and what isn't. But, you know, by the end of this journey for me, I just hope that like I see some unity and I see people getting paid what they deserve to be paid, man. So
all right,
that's
so
what I hope.
we'll go for some full circle before we let you go because we don't want to keep you. I could talk to you forever, but
we could talk for hours. I love this, man.
This is awesome. One of the things I want to ask is once again for the players that are here in local or anywhere that are watching this that are kind of trying to strive to take that next step from high school age into college age. What was something that you think isn't going to be told to them before they get on campus that they got to know about taking that next step? Because I'm not saying coaches are dishonest in college, but they have a job to do. They want to get you on campus. They probably won't tell you every horror story that you're going to go through when you get on campus. So what's something that you can say, hey, you should know this is going to happen before you step on campus?
You know, I think something that I wish I knew before going in is like you're going to hear a lot of like corrections. And I know this also is like it depends on your coaching staff. There's a lot of coaching styles that are very like positive reinforced and there's a lot of coaching styles that are like negative reinforcement. I would just say like don't be hyper fixated on all the things you're doing wrong. You're going to be told a lot of things you're doing wrong. But everything is not wrong. They're just trying to get you to like hone in on this one detail and get it perfect because from there, everything else works out. From there, we can grow from there. It's like learning the basic fundamentals of everything all over again, you know, and it sucks because you're like, well, you recruited me for the way that I am. Don't you love me? You know, but like you also don't realize that there's also so much more room to grow. So I think going into college with the with like the open mind to grow and get better and know that like all of those corrections, all of those maybe what feel like negative things coming at you are really out of, you know, out of love and out of want to make you better and make you grow. I think too, you know, don't be so quick to jump ship. You know, give them a reason to really, like, you know, if it has to do with playing time or it has to do with, you know, whatever, give them a reason to really not, you know, play you, you know, make sure you're the first one they're getting extra work in, make sure you're the last one to leave, you know, make sure you're doing all the regular teammate stuff, and being a good teammate. I think that that's something that's definitely overlooked nowadays too. Everyone is, because I think it comes with social media. If you're not out there on social media, then you think you're not going to get NIL things, you're not going to get money, and you're not going to get attention, and la, 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 la. Like, you're there to play softball. You're there to play softball. None of those things happen if you're not playing softball. You know, so just remembering why you're there in the first place. And then knowing that not everything is as negative as it seems. Like, really try to, like, see the positive parts of what feels like a lot of negativity, if that makes sense.
Were you frustrated at all when NIL came up after your college career was already done? Were you like, oh, come on?
You know, yes and no. I was a bit frustrated because I was like, dang, like, especially at ASU in those last 2 years, I think I could have made like a little bit of money. Because when I transferred into Arizona State, I transferred in as a walk on technically. I didn't get any money my junior year. I earned money my senior year. So I was a bit frustrated because I was like, dang, like maybe I could have made a little bit of money that way. Like these loans that I got to pay back weren't as big, but at the same time, I kind of see what it's doing to programs and I kind of see what it's doing to the sport of softball. And I don't like it. It honestly makes me a little grossed out. Because I think you lose a little bit of sense of pride for the school and the name on the front. I think that it's just becoming a little too like loose. Because even just the hard stuff, like coaches can't punish run people anymore. Coaches have to watch what they say. They can't yell and throw things and someone not feel like they were, I don't know, treated a certain way.
Yeah,
And it's
put
like,
in a bad situation. Yeah.
and it's just it's kind of sad to see. And so I think the NIL has only played into all the entitlement things that have been that were kind of inevitable, with these younger generations. But I don't know that I really missed out on it. Like I think it also puts a lot of pressure on some of these kids that feel like they have to have these NIL deals, and like you don't, sis. Like go play softball, have fun doing it. If that was supposed to come to you, it would have, and it should have. If it wasn't meant for you, there's a reason for that. Yeah, I don't know. I think it just feeds into the entitlement stuff for the kids that it is working out for, because they're going to come out of school with all this money and all these deals, but do they know what they're doing with all the money? Do they know how to use that money? Do they know, life isn't just going to be like that. You're not just going to get job on job on job. You're not just going to get money thrown at you all the time, So I don't know. I don't know. I'm happy I'm not a part of it. I'm happy that I think I graduated at the right time.
Right.
It was the year before COVID, so I didn't have to deal with, I didn't have to deal with that mental and emotional piece. And then the NIL floodgates opening up, like I didn't have to deal with. I think I graduated at the best possible time.
As soon as NIL came up, I said this is gonna be a good thing, but it's gonna be a bad thing for a while before it's a good thing.
I think there needed to be like a cap. I think
right.
there needed to be a cap. We couldn't
like,
just
because it kind of started and it was the wild, wild west. There was no, hey,
it was.
And it was kind of like the NCAA taking their hands off of it because it's like, this is what you wanted. We're backing off.
No.
And you guys figure it out yourselves, and no one knew how to figure it out.
Right. Like I think it's something that's going to continue to get worse before it gets better. Because I think it's going to start diluting the competition too. Because if let's call spades a spade, OU obviously brings in dummy amounts of money.
Well, yeah.
And the school might not have enough to cover full rides for a lot of their kids, but you have enough NIL money that now every kid on your team has a full ride essentially, and then kids stop picking schools to play and have that sense of pride for that. You're going to start looking at it like, okay, well, I can go play and ride the bench at OU for 4 years, make, let's say $400,000 by the end of my 5 years, just in NIL money. And I walked out with 4 natty rings as well.
Yeah, still
but
get a ring,
but I didn't do anything, and that to me is like, okay, so for all the social media purposes, that checks every box. You make it look like you have the life. It makes it look like you're living lavish. But from a me perspective, who I love softball and I want to be the one on the field, am I happy for whoever is out there when I'm not? Absolutely. We got to have the best person out there to win, and I just want to win. Winning's fun. But I would love to be a part of those wins. Like, I want to be a part of those wins. I don't want a natty ring just for no reason. I want to be able to say I played a pretty solid part in that. So to me, it's just like there needed to be a cap on it, because now you're going to see people going to these schools just for the money that comes with it and not really for the sense of pride to play. And you're going to have all your really good players who care about only that stuff
Yep.
hiding in these
And
places, and then the rest of the
those
softball is
players didn't
just
start out that way, and I bet there are people now in their circle that are like, "Hey, nudge, nudge,
yeah,
like, hey, you can go here and get a lot," and then they feed into it, and
yeah.
it's
It
it,
scares me. It
it's
scares
gonna get
me.
so bad that it has to get better. That's how it'll change. It'll get so
Yeah,
bad that change is the only option, and that's
yeah.
unfortunate.
But that's what I'm also saying about, like, your first year is hard. Like, it's gonna be a huge transition no matter what. Um, but you gotta make sure that you're giving your coaches a real reason, and,
Mhm.
that's what also scares me is like, "Oh, well, that was even just the slightest bit hard. Great, I'm gonna go transfer somewhere else where
Yep.
it's not as hard and I'm gonna get paid either way." Like, that bothers me.
And
That really bothers me.
it also sucks for the people that want to transfer for legitimate reasons because as soon as they do,
They ruin it for
everyone
everyone
just
else.
assumes, well, you're going there for the money, or you're
Yeah,
just it's selfish. Like
it
coming from
ruins it
someone
for
that did
everyone else.
transfer and you, like for
Mhm.
legitimate reasons, it hurts the people that do because now as soon as you hit that transfer portal, it's immediately you're being vilified and saying,
Well,
well,
and that's
shame
something
on you
else
for
that I
transferring.
think I think the NCAA kinda dropped the ball on the transfer portal too. I think they make it way too easy. I everything was like everything I had to do everything hard before they changed it all to the easy stuff. So, I I transferred the year before the portal happened, and when I transferred, um, I had to go sit in front of a board, like a board of people that worked at the school, like random professors, pretty sure the dean of students. Like, I had to sit in front of this board and like plead a case as to why I should be able to transfer, why I want to transfer, why Arizona State should be allowed as a school I can talk to. I had to like legitimate like I didn't just have to have the hard conversation with the head coach at the time. I had to go sit in front of a board and present a case. I had to go read and flag and highlight things in our athlete handbook at Fresno. I had to go flag and highlight things in the NCAA handbook. Like, I had to like legit like with bullet points and all, and like I had to do this whole thing just to transfer. And now these kids don't even have to have a conversation with their coach. They're just like, I'm in the portal.
It's like
What?
breaking up through a text. It's what it is. Like,
No,
hey,
but
guess what?
really, how is that going to help anyone? Like,
Mm,
just as a human perspective, like, how are these kids going to grow up and be able to have hard conversations?
mhm. You
Like
can't
when
transfer in the workforce. You can't just be
you
like,
can't
hey,
transfer in the workforce. You can't just quit. You got to put in a 2 weeks notice,
right.
like, how are you going to be able to draft that up? How are you going to be able to have that hard conversation with your boss? Like, this just isn't working out for me.
Mhm.
It's just like life things. So that's something else that blows my mind is you can just enter the transfer portal without even talking to your coaches. Imagine being a head coach and you're trying to build something
Hmm.
and you're trying, and you just wake up. You wake up
It has to
and
be
you're
like
like,
a
my
constant stress, right? Because like every day you wake up and you have to check the portal to make sure none of your kids are in
none of
there.
your kids went in there, and it's scary because then you're like, then I can't even imagine that you don't change the way you coach too. You
Right.
know, if you're too hard, like, see, and yeah, it's fun. I think I graduated and I transferred all at the right times.
Yeah. Oh, Morgan, you came on this show at just the right time too, because we love having you. Thank you so
Ah,
much for your time as always. One of
thanks
the
so
great friends of
much.
YSN. We got your back. Whatever you need, we got
Ah,
it. And
love
we'll
you
see you
guys
again
so
real soon.
much. Yes, absolutely.